you could have said any other sport as long as you mention a different country and it would have been handled differently because we do know that America is a little bit goofy. And
Correct.
I was just had a moment of gratitude for Aotearoa when I was watching the press conference for the Warriors versus Manly Seagulls post game, and Andrew Webster talking about the Las Vegas experience. He said, getting home to some beautiful nature, some fresh air, and a great country was awesome. Like, mate, that's just what we want. We just want a bit of gratitude for Aotearoa, and of course, returning to Aotearoa, returning to Mount Smart Stadium, the greatest stadium in Auckland. So the Warriors have a win over the Manly Seagulls, 36-16, and I'm still in the learning phase about Warriors Rugby League as far as some key foundations of their footy. Like we've got stuff that's been embedded by Andrew Webster. Like we've seen 2 and a bit seasons of rugby league for the Warriors under Andrew Webster now. So obviously there's a general stylistic, like how the Warriors play their rugby league generally, but I'm just still curious learning how some details about how this team in 2025 is playing their rugby league. But as I thought through it, there is this emerging aspect of Warriors Rugby League where the like it's not all about Dimitri Vaimonga and Aleka Halasima coming off the bench. But I use that as an entry point into breaking down Warriors Rugby League because Webster's basically deployed them for 20 minutes or less in the first 2 games. Now, that's a little bit annoying because you're like, damn, these dudes can impact the game. Like, these dudes can change the course of, a slumpy first half against the Raiders, or they could up the ante late in the first half and do some good stuff there. But in both games, Webster has used them late and they've played less than 20 minutes. First and foremost, that is part of a greater trend across the whole Warriors system where youngsters are being slowly developed. We've talked about that in recent weeks, especially when you're looking through New South Wales Cup, Jersey Flag, SG Ball. There is a trend of like, yeah, you played New South Wales Cup last year, but you're going to start the season in Jersey Flag. Yeah, you did play Jersey Flag. Maybe you even played New South Wales Cup last year for a few games, but you're starting there in SG Ball. They are very intentionally, I believe, under Andrew McFadden. They are slowing the development process down, which I think, given the history of the Warriors and how quickly youngsters have progressed through the Warriors and then disappeared, I think this is actually a good thing. And I've talked about it previously. I do believe McFadden and Webster, because they've been around the Warriors before, right? Like they were there when all the youngsters were playing a few under-20s games, then going straight into the NRL. So I think that is a deliberate trend across all grades, and it's evident in the NRL level. But the NRL team, it seems more of a strategy, a game plan to bring on Vaimonga and Halasima late in the game where they just increase the tempo after, 60 minutes, generally 55 minutes of grinding rugby league. None of that actually looked good against the Raiders, obviously, but we're talking about the Seagulls game where you've got a Warriors team that has individual runners who all run a bit differently. Like you've got Tuivasa-Sheck and his footwork. You got Taine Tuapiki and his speed and getting between defenders. But his try, he showed that burst of power that he has, bursting through the defensive line of the Seagulls. Sean's little Croxley's bouncing around every which way. Pompey kind of ambles into the defensive line. Then he's got his floating step that is tricky to handle for NRL defenders. Then you go through the forward pack, and what does Capewell do? He's bouncing. He's lumbering, bit of a goofy running style, but if he's cutting back, he's got a fend, he's got an offload, he's got footwork. Marata Niokore, what does he do? Runs it straight. He's running the inside ball. He's running the outside ball. Then you've got like Aaron Clark's speed, Fisher Harris, all those dudes, a little bit of passing involved. But the individual running styles and how they run, where they run, then you combine that with like the plays they have to run. So yes, there is the one pass hit ups that can be a bit tedious, but you've also got the Fisher Harris angling his runs out to the edges. You've got Capewell and Niokore running back inside. All of that is just working over the defenders. This is basically Panthers Rugby League. It's like Pam's Panthers. The Pam's brand, home brand, whatever you want to say. Like, obviously, the Warriors are pretty shit compared to the Panthers, but it's the same general premise where you're working over all these angles. You're challenging the defenders for time and time again. The frustrating thing for the Warriors is that they aren't as effective at it. So if you don't cash in at the end, it looks kind of stink. But if you're doing that for 55 minutes, 60 minutes, then suddenly Leka Halasima's on the field as an edge forward. Suddenly Vaimonga's playing through the middle, and what usually happens is Mitchell Barnett will go to left edge. Then you've got these very powerful, very mobile, skillful forwards who can impact the game, and they have consistently impacted games. Like Leka Halasima impacted the game on his debut against the Bulldogs. Impact is an understatement. Every time Vaimonga enters the field, he's impacting the game. And what did I think? Against the Seagulls, it was, let me check the score when these guys went on, because it was a pretty close game when these dudes went on. It was 24-16. And the Warriors ended up winning 36-16. So the Warriors, I think the Seagulls had just scored the try where Garrick flicks it back. Then Vaimonga and Halasima, either way, they score that try. Vaimonga and Halasima on the field. Then the Warriors score more tries. They finish the game off. So as far as identifying some key aspects of Warriors Rugby League in 2025, that is something that I've noticed that is very important. Mainly because you're like, I just want these dudes playing more. Why aren't they playing more? But the only game time they're getting is at the end of the game. And that against the Raiders, the game was already over. So it's like, what are we doing? Against the Seagulls, the game is in the balance. Then their energy enters the arena against tired bodies. Bang, you've got you have a good win. And the Warriors score points late in the game, which my intuition's telling me that is combined with big minutes for the starters early in the game. So Fisher Harris, he played 31 minutes straight. Usually, a lot of teams, they're rotating their props 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Fisher Harris played 25 minutes, then 27 minutes in his second shift. Barnett, 52 minutes straight. Aaron Clark, 30 minutes straight to start the game. So the three starting middle forwards all played at least 30 minutes to start the game. Thankfully, mad respect to the bro, Jackson Ford. Thankfully, he's coming off the bench. But he's just a good dude to have balancing out Vaimonga and Halasima because he's a workhorse. So the good thing about Ford is he's a workhorse doing the hard mahi alongside the power and the pizzazz of the young forwards. Even Dylan Walker, he's a skill player. He's a small forward. So there's a fine line between relying on Jackson Ford too much and using Jackson Ford, to my mind, in a wise way. And against the Raiders, there was a bit too much of Jackson Ford. Against the Seagulls, we got a good balance. Dylan Walker only played 25 minutes. That's less minutes than he has been playing predominantly last season. So I think Warriors fans should expect Barnett, Fisher, Harris, and Clark. Hopefully Clark keeps starting. But at least Barnett and Fisher-Harris, Warriors fans should expect them to be playing most of the first half. 30 minutes, that's most of the first half. That's 3/4 right there. And then expect the youngsters to come on later in the game, especially midway through the second half. That seems to be a key trend that the Warriors are doing this season. And it's a good way. Not only does Andrew Webster believe that that's a good way to win NRL games, but it's a good way to develop Vaimonga and Halasima. Because it keeps their role real simple, assuming this is something that is happening and it's not just me off the Aotearoa vitamins just making shit up, but it keeps their role simple and slowly establishes game time for them. Now, again, we're not trying to rush youngsters through this Warriors development pipeline, so that fits into that theme as well. The best player for the Warriors this year, to me, is Aaron Clark. Again, thankfully, he started the game. And, bro, he's fast, he's powerful, and he's aggressive. He can pass. He is a good passer because he came up through the Warriors system as a half, coming out of Manurewa, and debuted as a hooker. Now he's a small forward, starting games in the middle. So he can do the passing required, and he had 11 passes compared to 1 pass for Barnett, 5 passes to Fisher-Harris. So he's doing that job. But he's also very fast. He's very aggressive. And the Luke Metcalf style of running is like very direct and very fast. He doesn't like kind of bounce across field looking for a gap and then steps and then turns on the speed. He just kind of gets the ball, finds his gap, sees the gap, bursts through it. That's how Metcalf runs, and that's how Aaron Clark plays. So there's a lot more direct footy with Aaron Clark on the field. And I was thinking, like, throughout this Panthers dynasty, everyone's been talking like, this team has the best props. And then the Panthers would beat them in the grand final. Oh, this other team's got the best props. They got the best props duo. And they wouldn't make the grand final and the Panthers would win the grand final. So it's like, yeah, you can talk about like who's the best props. Yeah, you got this guy, you got that guy. He's the best prop. He's done this, he's doing that. James Fisher-Harris and Moses Leota won 4 consecutive NRL grand finals. And they came up against props who were apparently better than them. So yeah, there's other players in the Panthers playing at a high level, but we all know where rugby league, how wins, where winning footy starts in rugby league. It's the big boppers up the guts. And Fisher-Harris and Leota dominated opposition forward packs in 4 consecutive grand finals, to be honest, across 4 consecutive seasons. Now I'm watching the Warriors with Fisher-Harris, Barnett, and Aaron Clark. And it's the same feeling. The Warriors aren't as good as the Panthers. They're the Pam's Panthers, which is actually quite deep because, you know, you got Webster, you got the style of footy, you got the junior pipeline, like all of that stuff. They are genuinely the Pam's Panthers. But it's like, okay, yeah, you've got a better prop. I don't want to throw names in. I don't want to take shots. I just want to say, like, yeah, you got a better prop. You got a better prop combo. You got better middle forwards. But if you give me Fisher-Harris, Barnett, and Aaron Clark, I'm happy. Like, I'm not like, oh, these guys are shit compared to the other team. I'm like, I actually kind of like these dudes against any middle forward combination. And to me, it's one of the best middle forward trios I can remember the Warriors having. Because Fisher-Harris, we all know what he's done. I just referenced it. But he's still got that presence in the middle for the Warriors. Biggest thing for Fisher-Harris is, well, not the biggest thing, but something I've noticed, especially at the Warriors, is his squeeze. This is very weird, But you watch Fisher Harris, any tackling situation, he is squeezing the shit out of the dude with the ball. Like, I'm not taking the piss. I'm genuinely saying he squeezes them. So you imagine, get into your third eye, dude runs up to Fisher Harris, someone's around the legs, all good. Fisher Harris is up top, wraps him up, and he is squeezing them like an anaconda. And then you got Mitchell Barnett, who's pretty crazy. He's dynamic. His presence is just as hearty as Fisher Harris. But then you got Clark, who is also real fast for a middle forward and very aggressive. So I'm not saying these three dudes are the best middle forward trio in the NRL. Because anyone from Australia is going to say, nah, this guy, this team, that team. That's cool, fine. But I'm happy with this middle forward trio against any middle forward trio in the NRL. It does change when Jackson Ford's starting, though. Like, there is a big difference between Aaron Clark and Jackson Ford. But like, I felt like those dudes controlled the middle against the Seagulls. And again, that's the most important area of the field for rugby league. And they just give me a good feeling. You got any points? Because I don't want to just keep talking for 50 minutes straight, but you got anything you want to fire off?
Well, my main observation from that game was just a four-word observation, which you kind of already covered, which is that Aaron Clark is awesome. Like, I thought he was fantastic in that game. But I don't know, was that what changed, do you think, between a terrible performance in week one and a very good performance in week two? Was it just as much as like you get Aaron Clark in there, you get a bit more energy in the forward pack, get a bit more of a roll on, and everything flows from there? Or was there more to the story than that?
There's not more to the story. It's just a different story. And it's not that complicated. They were just like more intense, better attitude, more effort. And that is rugby league. Like, you can go deep into the stats. Some stats are better, some stats are the same, some stats are worse. And it's like, well, oftentimes in rugby league, you just win the game by having more energy than the opposition. And that's what the Warriors did, which isn't surprising because they came back to Mount Smart and it was a big occasion at Mount Smart. So, like, the most important observation that I probably should have mentioned at the start of this yarn was that the spirit is there. The Warriors' soul is there. There's something there. There is the mana, the wairoa, whatever you want to call it. The Warriors still have something there within them. Like, I didn't see like super slick clinical attacking movements. I didn't see a dominant defensive performance, even though they doubled the Seagulls score. Like, the Seagulls shape ripped the Warriors apart a few times. So there wasn't necessarily, this goes back to like what I'm identifying in the Warriors style of play. Like, I didn't see, okay, now the Warriors, they've just like shown razzle dazzle shape. The Warriors implemented this defensive scheme and it worked. No, the Warriors, like, rugby league is kind of simple in the sense that the Warriors just had better effort, better intensity, a better attitude. They played faster. They were more physical. And that won them the game. And that will win them many games in the NRL. Because in the NRL, if you don't show up, like, you might not show up with 10 out of 10 physicality, intensity, attitude all the time. But to win games in the NRL, you got to be playing at least 8 out of 10 intensity every week. Because if you dip down to 6 or 7, you will lose that game. It's one of these sports where, like, you don't necessarily need all, like, yeah, sure, some games, some matchups, whatever it is, there will be tactical decisions, tactical plays, tactical initiatives that go a long way to deciding the result. But the main thing that decides results in the NRL is your effort, your energy, your intensity. And that was the biggest difference to the Raiders. And these dudes don't necessarily lead the effort and intensity. But the two guys that I watch in catching a vibe on how the Warriors are playing, Shans Nickel-Croxter and Wayde Egan. They're my measurement. They're my barometer. They're my vibe check for how the Warriors are playing. And against the Raiders, Nickel-Croxter averaged a whopping 6.3 meters per run. Against the Seagulls, he averaged 8.5 meters per run. That is a massive factor. Like, it's obviously there's so much more to it, but if Nickel-Croxter is making meters, which he always does, like, you could say Roger Tuivasa-Sheck should be the fullback, but Nickel-Croxter has had, like, he was the Raiders fullback in a grand final run. Like, Nickel-Croxter is not a bad fullback. Nickel-Croxter is one of the sneaky best fullbacks in the NRL. And it just doesn't look like he's that powerful. It doesn't look like he's got that good of footwork. It doesn't look like he's that fast, but he usually gets his job done as a running fullback. He's a good, strong defender. Usually he's safe under the high ball, good mopping up the kick. So he does all that effort area stuff and defensive execution at fullback. But he is really important as far as starting the sets, getting between defenders, a little bit of footwork, that when you combine that with Tuivasa-Sheck, when you combine that with Taintua Piki, then you're starting to build out three runners who are very hard to tackle. But Nickel-Croxter, if he's had, like, he had 20 runs versus the Seagulls. That is solid Nickel-Croxter running mahi. And if he's just doing his job in that sense, he doesn't need to do 10 meters per run, but 8 meters per run, 9 meters per run. That tells me that the Warriors are starting their sets in a good position, and usually Nickel-Croxter will have another run. So maybe they kick to the winger. Nickel-Croxter might then have a run early in the set. He might have another run later in the set. They might kick to Nickel-Croxter. He runs that up. Then he's having another run mid-set. And if his running is on point, that's very dangerous for the Warriors, because then you add in Wayde Egan. Wayde Egan, when he was selected for round one, oh my gosh, Wayde Egan, like, he's always injured. He always gets hit in the head. What's he doing? Can he play 80 minutes? He's just played 2 games of 80 minutes. Like, he's all right. He can play 80 minutes. But most importantly, Wayde Egan's had 10 meters per dummy half run in both games. 6 dummy half runs for 10.3 meters per run versus the Raiders. 9 dummy half runs, 10.1 meters per run against the Sea Eagles. Wayde Egan's not fast. We talked about this last week. But he's very crafty, slow-mo, dummying this way, engaging the defenders around the ruck. And if Wayde Egan's playing at a very high level or a very solid level like Nickel-Croxter, it sets up everything else for the Warriors. So Nickel-Croxter, it's all about doing his job at a fullback, starting the sets, speed and a little bit of speed and power around the ruck, but just getting between the defenders. That sets up how the Warriors get downfield, because then you bring in Tuivasa-Sheck, you bring in Taintua Piki. Wayde Egan around the ruck sets up everything else that everyone else wants to talk about, right? Because they're like, Luke Metcalf was, like, the whole Warriors were bad against the Raiders. But apparently people were talking shit about Luke Metcalf. And then suddenly Luke Metcalf's good against the Seagulls. But again, the whole team was better against the Seagulls. This is This is part of the halfback fetish. Everyone wants to put this massive responsibility on the halfback. This isn't America. This isn't the NFL, the quarterback. No, you've got actual other team members who hold just as much value as the halfback. Yes, I understand the halfback's an important position, but the responsibility of every other player is far beyond what many media people make it out to be, and far beyond the quarterback NFL status. The halfback can only do what he can do. Actually, like the NFL, quarterback can only do what he can do if he's got a good offensive line, if he's got blockers, if he's got wide receivers, if he's got a running back. Luke Metcalf can only do what he can do if the Warriors are getting downfield, laying the platform. Wade Egan's engaging the defenders around the ruck to give Luke Metcalf a bit of space. Chanel Harris-Davida's doing his kicking and passing on the left side of the field. Everyone's doing their jobs around Luke Metcalf. But that goes back to the Sean Johnson factor, right? 2023, I was talking about everything except Sean Johnson, because everything else was awesome, and Sean Johnson was just doing his job. Funnily enough, 2024 is a shit year because most of the Warriors' top 17 was pretty shit. And Sean Johnson was shit. Sean Johnson wasn't the savior. He wasn't the reason for whatever the Warriors are up to. And we've just seen 2 weeks where apparently all the spotlight was on Luke Metcalf. No, it's like the Warriors as a team were shit against the Raiders, and as a team they were good against the Seagulls. But this goes back to my barometers where the thing to watch out for is nickel clockstar. It's Wade Egan, because that sets up everything else. But even putting those two on a pedestal, like, those are just things that I'm looking for, that I'm watching out for. But of course, you need the big boppers doing the physical work. You need everyone else doing their job as well. So it's just, and that goes back to what you're saying about the difference in these two games. It was just better attitude, better intensity, better effort. And to me, that's a Mount Smart factor. That's a signs of life factor for the Warriors. So, yes.
Yeah, and it is the NRL as well, where like the Roosters can have a bad loss in week 1 and everyone thinks they're heading for nothing but disaster, and then they beat the Panthers in week 2. And the Seagulls themselves were amazing in week 1. Probably they're coming away from this game at Mount Smart saying similar things to what the Warriors were saying about the Vegas trip. So not sure that the fluidity and the full 100% capacity was there from Manly either, sort of thing. And a lot of that is because the Warriors got on top and didn't let them do that. That's part of it, same because the Raiders did the same thing to the Warriors in week 1. But it is a notoriously like volatile league, the NRL, where if you score 50 points in a victory one week, you got to watch out the next week, because there's a good chance you're going to get upset the next time around. And likewise, if you get thrashed one week, you might well win the next week. Like, that's often the humiliation is all it takes to turn things around, unless apparently you're the Parramatta Eels at the moment. They might be an exception to the volatility rule, but yeah. Dylan Brown may have made a good business decision in that regard.
Well, the thing that also impressed me was, like, Mount Smart needs to snatch the soul out of the opposition. Regardless of who you are, where you're coming from, your form guide, if you come to Mount Smart, you're going to get smashed and some bad shit will happen to you, bad juju. What happened for the Seagulls? Little hamstring niggle for Tommy Turbo. Daly Cherry Evans. Crippled back. Old Gordy getting into it with the fans. It's like
There's
when,
Sinbin in there as well, you know.
exactly, Jazz Tavanga, couple of bottle throws, getting a bit ruckus, bit rowdy, couldn't handle the jandal. But if you come to Mount Smart, the Warriors need, I don't know, like the Warriors need to do their bit, right? The Warriors need to smash their opponent. They need to wrestle them, grapple them, fold them up, put them on their backside, drive them back, which they always do well early in the set, drive them back, fold them up, win the ruck speed, win the physical battle. Everything from there kind of takes care of itself. Wade Egan, Nickel Clockstar, runners, shape, all that stuff. But physically, the Warriors need to do their part. Then, especially the night games, you let Mount Smart do its part. You let the aura, the mana of Mount Smart work against the opposition, because it happens. And that's why, like, wins at Mount Smart for opposition teams are very impressive to me. Like the Melbourne Storm, they'll come to Mount Smart, they'll win. Easy. That's what's impressive about the Storm. And the Roosters, I think they had a real tough win in the rain against the Warriors last season. Maybe the season before. That's impressive. But we saw it against the Seagulls. The Mount Smart factor, it snatched the soul out of the Seagulls. Like they're all high and mighty. They're all having a good time. They come to Mount Smart, nothing works for them. They had a few good shape moments, but there's a lot of niggle. There's bad juju. There's bad vibes. People getting in trouble. People getting injured. That's Mount Smart. And haven't quite seen that for Auckland FC, the Blue Riders, just yet. But they'll get there. I think they'll get there. You did reference some other... no, let me do the New South Wales Cup. Then we'll expand out to the NRL. Because New South Wales Cup, they also had a win over the Seagulls, 31-20. The New South Wales Cup, they've now won their first 2 games. And it's only 2 games, but these 2 games are part of the most important trend for the Warriors. The most important thing for the Warriors is that the Warriors in New South Wales Cup are in their 3rd season of winning rugby league. 2023, they finished 3rd. 14 wins, 9 losses, 1 draw. Same record to finish 4th in 2024. Now they're 2-0 to start this season. This is important for a variety of reasons. One, a lot of youngsters playing New South Wales Cup over the last 3 years. So Leotawa, Vaimonga, Halasima, Jacob Laban, Tanistawa Smith, Iriaramia Toiava. They have all played a lot of games in New South Wales Cup in these 3 seasons, and they're winning. They're winning against the other fringe NRL players in the New South Wales Rugby League competition. Zion Mai'uu is the only kind of local junior to leave the Warriors New South Wales Cup team, and the Warriors have won both games without him. Like, they're doing all right without him. It's all good. So the youngsters are the core. Shout out to Kailani Going, because he's also played all 3 seasons, and he has a winning record as a Warriors New South Wales Cup player. But there's been a lot of turnover of more senior players in that New South Wales Cup team. Ronald Volkman, he was in the 2023 team. You've got Braden Williami, James Gavey, Michael Seo, Maya Sands, Eden Ackland, Ben Farr, Setu Tu, Paul Roach. They've all come and left the Warriors New South Wales Cup team, and the Warriors have kept winning without them. Let's take that further. Here's the spine for the last game the Warriors played in New South Wales Cup of each season. So 2 losses in the finals, then the win over the Seagulls. 2023, Setu Tu at fullback, Ben Farr, Ronald Volkman, Paul Roach, halves and hooker. Last season, Taintua Piki at fullback, Luke Hanson, Paul Roach, Makai Tafua. Against the Sea Eagles, Geronimo Doyle, Tamaita Martin, Tana Boy, Samuel Healy. Those are completely different spines for each year, and the Warriors keep winning. So there's a core group of young players. There's a lot of departures, and the Warriors keep winning. That reflects very well on the young players, on the club, and what they're doing throughout their pipeline. This season we've had Kalis Fatialofa has got more game time as an edge forward. I think he's an Otara junior coming out of De La Salle College. He had a fend of doom on Brandon Wakeham for his try on the weekend. Then we've also got Toby Crosby coming off the bench, stepping up from Jersey Flegg last season. Again, anyone who's seen Toby Crosby's highlights, this dude's now just coming off the bench in New South Wales Cup. Morgan Harper's been decent, playing on the wing. Obviously, like I mentioned, the spines across these 3 seasons. This year's spine is the best. Tamaita Martin, Tana Boyd in the halves. They could play NRL right now. But then we get to the best player in New South Wales Cup. So Aaron Clark has been my best player for the NRL team. Pre-season NRL footy. Pre-season New South Wales Cup footy, the best player for the Warriors in reserve grade is Samuel Healy, the hooker. 22 years old, youngster. He is awesome. Good passer, good runner out of dummy half, but he did get the ball a few times against the Sea Eagles, like just in the back line. Like a pass, then Sam Healy gets the ball, and he's bouncing all over the show. He's got footwork, he's got a fend. He's a big body. Like I'm fine with Wade Egan playing 80 minutes. And yes, if worst case scenario happens, they'll have cover. Someone else can play hooker, but that's a worst case scenario. But Samuel Healy will play NRL for sure this year. Guaranteed. And he is awesome. He's got a bit more speed and a bit more size than Wade Egan. But he's a better dummy half than, what do we have? Paul Roach in 2023. And Makai Tafua is a very good dummy half, but he's in Jersey Flegg. Jacob Auloa, very good dummy half. He's in Jersey Flegg. Both of them have played a lot of New South Wales Cup. But they're starting this year in Jersey Flegg, and the Warriors brought in Sam Healy to do a job as the starting dummy half in New South Wales Cup. He's starting ahead of Freddie Lussick, but when Lussick's on the field with Sam Healy. So sometimes Lussick is playing more of the small forward. Sometimes Sam Healy's just floating around. He's awesome. And he's doing a great job in New South Wales Cup. But again, like this is just a really good New South Wales Cup setup. Like guys who have played in all 3 seasons, Moala Graham Telfer, Ed Cossey, Tom Ale, Bunty Afoa, Jacob Laban, Freddie Lussick, Stowers Smith. Stowers Smith is an awesome emerging forward. Kailani Going. Leotawa, Vaimonga, and Halasima have moved up to the NRL level, and they look comfy at the NRL level. These are the foundations of the NRL team in New South Wales Cup. All the junior stuff builds up to New South Wales Cup, but the foundations of the NRL team are in New South Wales Cup. And most of the New South Wales Cup team that has started or been top 17 in the first 2 games, most of them could step into the NRL very easily. Most of them have already played NRL. Most of them are NRL caliber. And that is the depth available to the Warriors at the moment. You did mention some of the other goings-ons in the NRL. There was a very good, impressive victory for the Roosters again. I kind of felt like I was part of it because did react strongly to the Warriors' loss versus the Raiders, but it is a reminder just to chill out. It's a long season. Like, you're going to have your ups and downs. But the Roosters did have a good win over the Panthers. Celeste Fekete playing his second game, got a sin bin, so good on him for a sin bin early in his career. But suddenly Naufahu Whyte is a very important player for the Roosters. Now, remember, for the Kiwis last year at the Pacific Championship, he was one of the best players. Now he's got a very important role in the Roosters forward pack, and he has gone up from 33 minutes a game last season to 53 minutes per game in his first 2 games of this season. Against the Panthers, 58 minutes, 13 runs at 13.9 meters per run, 30 tackles at 91%. He's 22 years old. So you can point to any young middle forward again. Oh, he's the best young forward in the NRL. I'm probably going to say Naufahu Whyte. And he's building nicely on a very impressive campaign for the Kiwis last year. Also had Bentley Harpe making his debut against the Dragons. Played on the wing for the Rabbitohs. And he didn't have a massive impact on the game, but he did his job as a winger for the Rabbitohs. I think, well, according to rugbyleagueproject.org, that was his first game on the wing. So he's usually a fullback for the Rabbitohs in New South Wales Cup. And he played a lot of centre coming through the Roosters system. So the Roosters recruited him from Aotearoa when he was playing junior footy and junior touch in Aotearoa coming from Northland. Long time in the Roosters system, like at least 5 years in the Roosters system before he appeared to take a break, which was probably due to injury. And then he started to appear in the Rabbitohs New South Wales Cup team, and he's just worked his way through that. So he has definitely earned everything he's got now as far as an NRL debut. Curious to see how he builds on this for the Rabbitohs. Rabbitohs have a few injuries and outs in their backline, so that's presented the opportunity to Bentley Harpe. And he's not going to play fullback because they got Jai Gray. So he was a centre, I think, coming up through the Roosters ranks as well. So being able to cover centre and wing will be very important for him at the Rabbitohs. Rabbitohs do also have, they don't have a big Kiwi-NRL crew, but they do have Salesi Ata in New South Wales Cup, Otahuhu Jr., and you've got Nazareth Tawa. I think he might be New South Wales Cup edge forward or Jersey Flegg edge forward. He's a Maris Jr. from Auckland. You mentioned the Eels. Eels have very quickly gone from an incredibly fun Kiwi-NRL team to just one of the stinkers. There was that period where they had Dylan Brown from Northland, Whittamu Greg from Northland, Isaiah Papali'i, Te Aratū Jr., Maratini Okori Mangari's Jr., Te Hurinua Twiddle was starting to blossom in their system. That was a real fun time for the Kiwi-NRL vibes. Greg's not playing NRL. Papali'i left, Neokore left, and Dylan Brown's about to leave. They do still have Twiddle, but he's just chilling in Jersey Flegg at the moment. Makahisi Makatoa was doing a good job playing a few games over the past few years. Now he's with the Roosters. So the whole Kiwi-NRL realms at the Eels has changed very quickly, very drastically, and now they're just one of my least favorite Kiwi-NRL clubs. So shout out to them. Dylan Brown going to the Eels. To the Knights, sorry. Obviously, it's next season. So I still find the conversations about how Dylan Brown fits at the Knights very strange because he's playing games this season. The Knights are playing games this season. But I think I talked about it on the bonus podcast, and I'll relay it to here, where the Knights have become one of the biggest recruiters from Aotearoa. That gets a bit weird when players like Stafford, Toa, Simi Sasangi have left the Knights as soon as they start to settle in as NRL players at the Knights. So that just leaves a sour taste for me. And they didn't recruit Leo Thompson from Aotearoa, but they did sign him from the Raiders, who recruited him from rugby in Aotearoa, and now Leo Thompson's leaving. But at least they have Tyrone Thompson as twin brother, so they replace one twin with another. The thing about the Knights that obviously the Aussies won't discuss is that they love Aotearoa. That doesn't necessarily lead to all these players shining in the NRL team for the Knights, but they recruit heavily from Aotearoa. They do it for the women's team. Like Whane Finau's and Otara Jr., who the Knights recruited to enter their women's pipeline. The Knights NRLW team has always had Kiwi ferns, always had players from Aotearoa. In the men's pipeline, they have like every level has a bunch of Kiwi-NRL juniors. New South Wales Cup, well, Sebastian Sewer, he's another example. Recruited from Aotearoa, Mount Albert Jr., he's signed to the Dolphins for next season. They have Elijah Salisa Leao Moana, Southern Cross campus, same school as Leka Halasima. He's a good edge forward in New South Wales Cup. You go to their Jersey Flegg team, now they've got Cullen Gray in the halves, who is also from Northland. Same club as Dylan Brown, Hikurangi Stags Jr., but he played first 15 rugby for Auckland Grammar School, dabbled in a bit of rugby union in Wellington and the Brumbies in Australia. Now he's with the Knights. He's playing in the halves for the Knights Jersey Flegg team. That also has Bailey Carmichael, Tama Kaimoana, Whare Aorere, both of whom are from Te Puke and went to Rotorua Boys High School. You got Hami Loza from De La Salle College. He's in the halves. So both the under-21s and the under-19 teams for the Knights have halves from Aotearoa. You got Sasai Latu in the outside backs of the Knights. He's a Mangere Junior. You've got Xavier Lynch. He's from Christchurch. Can't remember his junior club off the top of my head. Probably Hornby. You got Ezekiel Whangaiti. He's from Christchurch. He's on the bench for the SG ball team every week. Hornby Jr. off the top of my head. Then Ryder Crosswell's a very good emerging player as well in the halves from Palmerston North, I think. Forgive me if I'm not getting these junior links, just firing right at the moment. But the point is, they have a lot of players from Aotearoa in their system, and they love recruiting youngsters from Aotearoa at every level. So you can say, Newcastle area, great junior farm system. They got, it's the heartland of rugby league. But they recruit a lot of players from Aotearoa. So maybe Aotearoa is the heartland of rugby league because every NRL club's recruiting from Aotearoa at every level. And the Knights, they don't discriminate rugby union, rugby league either. They'll sign pure rugby league juniors. They'll sign pure rugby union juniors. They'll sign the hybrids as well because most youngsters in Aotearoa play both codes. So I'm not sure how relevant that is to the Dylan Brown signing, but it is worth noting that the Knights love youngsters from Aotearoa, men and women. They will recruit men and women from Aotearoa at every level. Now they've just recruited the Aotearoa Kiwis half. Best starting half combination, Jerome Hughes, Dylan Brown. Now they've got Dylan Brown in their ranks. So a lot of rugby league stuff there. Did you have any thoughts on Bailey Bentley Harpe's debut coming against your Dragons? Probably, let's be honest, your Dragons aren't very good. I can't imagine Bentley Harpe made a massive impression on you as a Dragons fan, but were you aware that yet another youngster, yet another player from Northland coming into the NRL?
Yeah, they mentioned him a little bit on commentary as well, which was a tidy reminder. But you had told me ahead of time, so I didn't know to look for him. But he didn't It didn't feel like he did much in that game. Yeah, it was a little bit of a strange one, just the way that game went in general, because it was like 60 minutes gone. It looked like the Dragons were just going to roll them and had a nice couple try lead. Rabbitohs were looking already with a bunch of injuries, looking tired, looking gassed, looking like they were going to struggle to finish the game, and then should have ended right there. It would have been nice. It would have been a happy victory for the Dragons. Instead, somehow the script flipped and the Bunnies rolled them in the last 20 and came through the victory. But I didn't feel like there was a lot of above and beyond stuff from Bentley Hape, other than like just the natural stuff of the ball comes to you, you take a hit up here or there, doing your job within the backline sweeps and whatever. There wasn't really any above and beyond, but um, at the same time, if you're not getting noticed, it also means you're not making errors. It might mean you didn't score a hat trick, but it also means you didn't drop the ball under you weren't dropping eyeballs or anything like that. So solid enough, I guess. And it's always nice to play in a comeback victory.
He did match up against Tyrell Sloan, which was a bit tricky because Sloan's really fast. But yeah, Bentley Hape, congratulations. Second Kiwi-NRL debutant of the year, 2 rounds in.